Okay, you go for it too. We'll both have it recorded.
Cool.
So like Craig is saying, we actually do this recording. This is part 3 in our SEO series. So we've recorded part 1 and part 2. If you've missed those, I can post links for those so you can catch up if you didn't see those already. But this is part 3 in the SEO series. And I am one of the trainers over here at Pictage. And as you can see, Craig down there in the corner, you can't see me, but you can hear me. You can see Craig in the corner there. Craig is actually going to be our speaker today, and he's Pictage's Senior Director of Marketing. Craig has a degree in economics from Harvard University, and he also has an MBA from USC. He's one smart cookie. He's been doing online marketing since 2004, and prior to Pictage, Craig has advised clients in various arenas about SEO. He has a lot of experience in this, and so I feel honored that he's taking the time to talk to us and specifically to talk about photography-related websites and SEO for us. So without further ado, we'll pass it over to Craig.
Great. Thanks for the introduction. And I love talking about SEO, and today we're going to talk about images. Today's probably going to be shorter than the last two because there really isn't much to image SEO. It's just a few things that you need to, there are just a few things you need to know, and you'll see how it works. So, part 1 and 2 of our SEO series is online at pictage.com/blog. Just click through to the SEO section in the drop-down menus. And first I wanted to start by reviewing just what SEO is so that we are all on the same page. It's about two things: telling Google or Bing that your page is relevant for a certain thing or topic, and telling Google or Bing that your page is an important page. It has authority. Just two things. And I go over those in detail in the previous 2 webinars. Also, another little review slide is just the different ways that you can be seen in Google. This is image block, place pages, which is going to be covered in the next webinar later this month, and then the basic results, which I covered in the previous 2 webinars. So today we're going to focus on image SEO. So you would appear here, and you would also appear in a search on images.google.com. You can do searches, on that URL specifically for images. So this is an example of what an image search looks like on images.google.com, and as you can see, this image set of images exactly matches this, what you see in a regular search result. And Google makes a little determination about the kind of search you're doing, so the word photos or pictures of or images of will send it a signal, and it will include an image block. And sometimes it will include an image block even if you don't do that, like if you just search for a celebrity, for example, it'll just do it. It has different kinds of image blocks, so this is like an inline image block. Sometimes it'll show you, oops, Brad Pitt, it'll show you another inline. Well, it will show you a regular image block. It's funny because if you do the search for someone that's currently in a movie right now, you'll get a larger image block, and then when they're not doing anything and they're not kind of in the public eye, you'll get this image block. It's really interesting. This really doesn't have much to do with you guys, but I think that's kind of neat how they make these little behind-the-scenes determinations about when to show an image block. So, getting back to image SEO, these are basically the 5 factors, and they're, it's just these 5. Everybody knows about number 2, alt text, and that's important. It's by itself, it doesn't do much, but in concert with these other 4 factors, it is an important thing. Number 1 is the file name. I'll give examples of that. You basically want a file name that has keywords in it. I'll talk about that on the next slide. And then the third factor is surrounding text, talking about what's in the image or writing about what's in the image immediately before and after the image on the page. I'll show you that as well. And then the last two items, number 4 and 5, are things that I talk about in the previous two webinars. They're the same factors I talk about, where number 4 is you want to make sure that all of your traditional SEO factors on the page where the image appears are optimized, so that you're using keywords in your H1 tags and your URLs and your title tag that also match what's in the image that you're trying to optimize. And then number 5 is anchor text in the incoming links. That means that when other sites link to you, what is the clickable text on their site? The clickable text is a phrase that has to do with the image that's featured on the landing page. That's a good signal to Google that that image is actually about that same phrase that was clickable. The key to all this, you can know all these factors, but the key really is to make sure that they all are working together so that they all are giving the same signal to the search engines for a certain phrase. And we'll get into examples. So this is keywords in a file name. Obviously, we've all seen this. This doesn't really say much. These are better. If you have an image and it's about the Julia Morgan Ballroom is a popular wedding venue in a certain city. Central Park, family portraits in Central Park. These are examples of keywords in file names. Pretty simple. Alt text is, you all are probably familiar with that. You want to keep them under 140 characters, and you want to reinforce the keywords that you chose for your file name. So you can copy them exactly or just have a little variation or get a little more descriptive in your alt text, but just make sure that it contains some of there's a lot of overlap. And that's an example of the two signals working together, and they reinforce each other. Surrounding text is important, and it's really relevant because a lot of you have blogs, and that's a great opportunity because your blog post is pretty much all text and images, and you have an opportunity to talk about you guys basically post about your images and you talk about the event and the images, so you're kind of already doing this. But if you tweak it a little bit and just make sure that you talk about each image before it and after it, that can help you. And I'll show you some examples of that right now. So what I did, I wanted to use this example. I just searched for a picture of lion in jungle. I'm going to go over to Google and just do this. Let's do it here. Okay, so as you can see, this is the file name here. It's a whole bunch of letters, and that is actually this. Same thing for this one. It's just 1.0.jpg. So this site does not have keywords in the file name, but the image is still ranking. Just to quickly look at the rest of them, see how this one has young lion in the file name, lion forest. Why is lion called king of the, it's probably jungle right after here, so this one is an example of two. The keywords in our search are in the file name. So all of these images are pretty much using file names in an optimized way. Lion. Okay, so I singled out these two because they don't, but they still are ranking in the image block and they're doing really well. So why is that? It's because of the surrounding text and other on-page signals. So let's look at the page that this image lives on. So I'm just going to click through to it. This is the page. This is the image here. So let's look around it. See how right before it, it has lion, jungle. Right after it, it has lion, jungle. So that's surrounding text. That's helping this image rank. It's making up for the fact that lion and jungle are not in the file name. Let's look at the rest of the page. The title tag is this. It's you can see that pop up. It says, "Do lions live in the jungle? If not, why do they call them king of the?" It's probably jungle. It's cut off though. So the phrase "lion in jungle" is pretty much intact in the title tag of the page. So that's an example of the title tag working in concert with the surrounding text. Let's see what the alt tag is on here, if any. Where it's down here. It looks like they don't even have alt text, so that's a good example of how you want to ideally have all of these things working together, but even if you don't have some, you can still do well. So this image has no alt tag. It also has an H1 tag here, lions in the jungle. So my point is basically that all the page-wide SEO factors are all working together with the image to tell Google that this is a picture of a lion in a jungle. And if we went to this page, we would see the same thing. Surrounding text, it's all the other signals on the page. I'm just pointing that out like I said, to show you that you don't have to have all of the factors, but in an ideal world, you'd want them. You'd want to make sure you cover them all if you really want the image to rank. So there you go. I want to show you now an example of a photographer who has done this, and it's Edwin, who works here with us at Pictage. He and his wife Nancy have a website, and if you search for Whittier portraits, which I did, these are all Edwin and Nancy's images. And what they did is added Whittier portraits to the file name. Each one's a little different, but they're still ranking. I'm going to click through to his page, show you guys the rest of the page. The images are down here somewhere. Here they are. So what they did is they have a little caption. They repeat Whittier portraits, and they have a little smile, you're on camera, you know, just other funny things. But what this is doing is it is giving this is surrounding text. So Whittier portraits is before and after this image. You know, Google could have picked any of these, but it picked this one first. Let's make sure that that's true. I picked this one first, probably because it has Whittier portraits, the exact phrase we use in the file name. This one is second because there's an extra word in here. It's still a clear signal for Whittier portraits, but this extra word makes it a little bit less clear than this. So you can kind of see it in action. This has portraits, but it doesn't have. But the phrase is separated by the word senior. So our exact phrase isn't in the file name; it's split up as a word. So you can notice little things that Google is probably doing to differentiate the ordering of the results. I also wanted to show you guys this one. I ran across this in the forums. Anna and Spencer our photography do this. They're Pictage members. And if you search for images of a wedding at Wimbush House, you can see this is their image. Their file name is wimbushhousewedding.jpg. This one is Wimbush House Wedding also. It's probably in a different directory or something. So if we click through to the page, we can see this is an H1 tag, and it has Wimbish House in it. The title tag has Wimbish House in it. If you can read that, it's kind of in the middle of it. As we saw, the file name had Wimbish House in it with the word wedding. They don't have surrounding text, so they could add it. I mean, this is already working for them. So I would encourage you guys, when you do blog posts, to put some words above and below each image. I know it's easier just to list the images like this, but it could really help you if you take a little time and add a little text. Just like Edwin and Nancy did, it doesn't have to be fancy, just a little bit would help you give a clearer signal. Let's see. Those are my
Craig,
two.
Can you go back to the one that you
Sure.
were just looking at and show what their alt tag is, if they
Oh yeah,
have
let's
it?
see that one. Let's look at this one. Let's see. They use a title tag, which is pretty much the equivalent of an alt tag. Wimbish House Wedding, so they have the phrase in the title tag.
Okay.
Think of a title tag. This is a title attribute. Don't confuse it with the title tag of the whole page. The title attribute of the image is the same as the alt attribute or the alt tag of the image. So they are using that. So yeah. So this is a good example of multiple things giving the same signal.
And David actually has a question. He just popped in. He asked, is there any way to put it in, and I believe he was talking about the surrounding text, is there a way to put it in without being so obtrusive to the layout of the blog? Image after image, sorry.
You might have to get creative with your layouts. I mean, you could just have an image, then text, then an image, then text, or you might want to, I don't know, you could, justify your images and have text to the left of each image, like a table. It just depends on how much time you want to spend formatting. Think of it like a magazine. You could structure it like a magazine with captions under each image in italics that are just 2 sentences or 1 sentence long. You could get pretty creative with it, the way you visually present it, if you want to. You may decide, it's up to you too, you may decide that it's too visually obtrusive and you just stick with image files, alt tags, clear title tags, and all of the other factors and see if that works for you. And if it's working for you, maybe you don't need surrounding text. But just keep checking it because, Google makes these decisions regularly, and if somebody else on the internet suddenly has images that are giving clearer signals than you are, you might need to kind of change up what you're doing or add the surrounding text if you haven't been, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And that was pretty much the end of the presentation. I mean, image SEO is pretty wide open. You notice I didn't really talk about authority. When you see a lot of the images you see in the search results are on pages that really don't have a lot of authority. So image SEO right now is all about giving a clear relevance signal. You don't really have to get into link building and making sure that the page is authoritative before you can see it rank. Like Edwin and Nancy, that page isn't particularly authoritative. It's an interior page on their blog, but their images appeared right away as soon as they made those relevance changes. So I would encourage you all to try it right now.
Okay, so I have another question that just came in. Where do you somebody's asking, because you're saying you would know what alt text is, where would you add in alt text, like if you were blogging, for example?
So if you have WordPress, you should install SEO All-in-One pack, and that's a really good, it's pretty much the standard SEO plugin for WordPress, and you can, there's a little box for you to add your alt text for each image. If you're at whatever blogging platform you're on, you should be able to find an SEO plugin that lets you do that because it's very standard. If any of you are just coding HTML, which I don't imagine many of you are, if you are though, you can actually see it. Like you saw me checking. This blog uses a title tag as well, and it just shows up like this. So this is your image. This is saying here comes an image. This is the alt text or the title tag. This is where the image lives, and then you give size and height. I should mention one thing. If you can, it's great to indicate the height and the width of the image. It's not a must-do, but it's a nice thing to do because it gives Google one more signal about the size of the image. It also lets your page load faster because when you have width and height, your browser will, kind of go through your code and it will say, oh, there's an image here. It hasn't quite loaded yet, but I know how big it is, so I'm just going to save space that's that size, and I'm going to keep loading the rest of the page. If you don't have width and height tags like this, your browser will get to an image. It'll say, here comes an image. It's not loaded yet. I don't know how big it is. I have to wait. It'll wait till the image is loaded. Then it'll move on. So it makes your page load a little bit slower when you don't include that. And that might be important for a lot of you because, you're all photographers and you all show images that are big, which is great. And so page load time is something you should think about. So try to have your height and width in there.
Okay.
So
I don't know if you saw David's question. He was just asking what's the main difference between title and alt.
There really isn't. It's one of those gray areas.
Okay.
Nobody is 100% sure, but they both seem to work the same way. So I would use either. I mean, if you have a choice, use the alt tag just because that's the standard tag that historically everyone has talked about. But the title tag seems to work in much the same way, but really you would have to work at Google or Bing in their search group to really know exactly what the difference is, and that's stuff that they don't confirm anything like that publicly.
Okay. And I'm looking here to see if anybody else has any other questions. Yeah, Craig's going to be wrapping up pretty soon, so if you do have questions, be sure to give a shout out. And while we're waiting to see if any more questions come in, Craig and I actually are going to be at Partner Conference starting next week, and if those of you that are interested and live in California want to join us, and if those of you that don't live in California but want to jump on a plane and come out and join us, I'm going to give you guys a link to PartnerCon as well. It's going to be an awesome conference that Pictosh puts on every year, so I will share that link with you guys here.
It's going to be great. One thing I did want to tell you guys is I wanted to give you a couple of links where you can learn more. There is a little bit of experimental, there's some experimental thought about image search. So we know that Google and Bing do things like they can calculate how much skin is in an image. There's a funny story where years ago when image search was first getting started, Google had a kind of a indecency filter, and it would filter out images that showed too much skin, and they ran into problems because they were filtering out images of surfers and people in bathing suits that weren't indecent, but it was kind of like a clunky implementation at first. But it's grown since then, but they do look at things like skin. They seem, when you're searching for a person's name, they seem to like to show faces, close-up faces. So I don't know if that would factor into any of your images, but if you're optimizing an image that's about a person, you probably should use a close-up of their face. I don't know how often that'll come up for you, but that's something that seems to happen. Like if you search for a celebrity, you'll notice that it's a close-up of the face all the time. Then there are other things like Google may look at an image and figure out what color is predominates the image. It may also look in the image and pull out. It may do optical character recognition, or OCR. It may look at the image, look at the shapes in the image, and figure out, okay, these are letters and this is a word. And it may be able to kind of use that as another signal that something is about a certain topic because that word is actually in the image file. But that's all experimental. Nobody really knows about that. And the first link here from SEO Moz talks a little bit about that. So you could watch. It's actually a video that you could watch. And the second two items on this page just talk a little bit about some of the updates Google has made recently to show images immediately when they're posted online in the search results. And also, they've made improvements about showing, if many people upload the same image, they've made improvements about showing the original source of the image. I don't think that really applies to you guys because you're uploading your own images and you're pretty much the source. So nowadays it's unlikely that someone else will take your images, upload them, and start outranking you for your own image if you've uploaded your image first. But if they're doing that, you probably have other problems because that means somebody's probably breaking your copyright and using your images without you wanting them to, perhaps. So that's what those other articles are about. They're not really everyday concerns, though.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Any other questions come in? So you guys be sure to check out the links that I did send over, especially the one that gives the previous 2 webinars if you haven't joined us. And we'll also be posting this one along with Craig's slides. So if you want to see links and actually be able to click on these links, the slides will also be up in the blog. We should have those. These will probably be up within the next week with PartnerCon. Usually we're a little bit quicker about it. But we will get these posted on there, so if you do need links to the slide or want the slide links, you'll be able to get those as well. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see some of you next week.
Thanks.
The organizer has ended the session, and this